Hello everybody and welcome to another video. As you can tell by the title, today we are going to be reacting to the League One predictions that I made at the start of the 2021-22 season. And basically just going over how wrong I was, to be honest with you. Like every single year, whenever I do prediction videos, I am bound to get a lot wrong, and I sure as hell have this year. So as ever, with these videos, we will start at the bottom of the table and work our way up. So starting off with the bottom four. In 24th place, bottom of the league, I predicted Cambridge United to go straight back down. And I think I speak for most people who had Cambridge to go down, was of course the departure of Paul Mullin. He went in the summer, obviously joining Wrexham. The amount of goals that he scored last season was absolutely ridiculous, and we've seen it a lot over the past few years with League One clubs losing their star men, not replacing them adequately, and then having a dreadful season. However, in the case of Cambridge, it really was the polar opposite. You know, they really did step up this year. The other players that they had, you know, Joe Ironside had a really impressive season this year, 15 goals, I do believe. Sam Smith, didn't have much confidence in him going into the season. Obviously, I guess you could say coming in as Mullin's replacement, coming over from Reading. His goal scoring record wasn't brilliant, and he was their top goal scorer in all competitions with 17 goals. They finished 14th. They finished in mid-table, 10 positions off where I had them, which is absolutely brilliant, isn't it? Kicking off this video with an absolute howler, but honestly, fair play to Cambridge. They were definitely one of the more impressive sides I saw come to the Valley this year. Their fans were fantastic as well coming down the Valley, and yeah, they've got a good little setup there as well. Mark Bono, young up-and-coming manager, he done very well this season, you know, to build that team up, you know, keep the confidence of most of the players that were there that got them promoted last season, and were rewarded with a mid-table finish. So I have to say congratulations to Cambridge with that one. Going to be interesting to see how they do next season. Obviously, they are going to need to add to that team next year to try and cement their position in mid-table. They don't want a case of second season syndrome. In 23rd place, I predicted another newly promoted side and probably the odds-on favourites to go down this season. It is, of course, Morecambe, the team that got promoted via the playoffs. There was a massive summer overhaul at Morecambe this summer. Obviously, Derek Adams did rather controversially leave the club and sign for Bradford City. Stephen Robinson came in and he left, I think, about the new year. Then Derek Adams obviously came back. They basically got a whole new team in together. They lost some key personnel, Carlos Mendes Gomez, of course, being the big one, heading off to Luton Town. They did keep some other players, you know, Cole Stockton, of course, being the main one, and he had a ridiculously good season this year, 26 goals and 7 assists, I do believe. How he wasn't in the PFA Team of the Year is an absolute disgrace, in my opinion. But yeah, hesitant to use the phrase Stockton carried them on their back this year, though, because he was, without a shadow of a doubt, their key man, and you could probably make the argument and say, had Stockton not scored the amount of goals that he did, Morecambe could have actually gone down this season. They had the worst defensive record in the league, 88 goals conceded, which is absolutely unacceptable. However, despite all of that, they defied the odds and they managed to survive. They finished in 19th, just 2 points clear. If they lose Stockton, who I have no doubt is going to be receiving top-end League One or even Championship interest, if he goes, I think they're in trouble next season. It's as simple as that, really. In 22nd place, I predicted AFC Wimbledon. This season, I just felt it was way too much. They lost their two top goal scorers, Joe Pigott and Ryan Longman. Pigott, obviously, 20 goals last season. He went to Ipswich. Longman was obviously on loan from Brighton. He earned the Championship move to Hull this season. They didn't really replace them well. They signed Aaron Presley on loan from Brentford, who they were obviously hoping was going to do the same thing that Marcus Fors did a few years ago. That loan move didn't really work out. They didn't really have a recognised goal scorer in their side. Had some key players this season who did step up, but ultimately I was correct. It was a bit too much for Wimbledon this year, and they have gone down. Not in 22nd though, but in 23rd. So not too far off from that one, just one off. I did predict correctly that they would go down, winning just 6 games all season and going on quite possibly the worst run of form a League One club has ever had in a very long time, potentially ever. What was it, like 26 or 27 games without a win? Didn't win a game since the 7th of December, which is... it's relegation form. It's exactly what it is. Wimbledon do deserve to go down. There is no sugarcoating that. They have had an absolutely dreadful season. As I said, though, they did have some good players step up this season. Jack Rudoni, Io Basal and Luke McCormick being the key ones for me. Rudoni got 12 goals and 7 assists. I have no doubt that there will be interest in him again from either top-end League One clubs or even some Championship interest. I wouldn't be too surprised. Commiserations to Wimbledon, but unfortunately, and rather harshly, we have to say, Wimbledon do deserve to go down this year. And then in 21st place, closing off the bottom four, I predicted then Simon Grayson's Fleetwood Town, which certainly was a bold shout and one that I didn't expect to make at the start of the season. But ultimately with Fleetwood, they had a very uninspiring manager who I just felt did not have it anymore. And I actually did predict correctly that Grayson would be sacked just before the new year. That, of course, did happen. That needed to happen if they were going to have any chance of surviving this year. The assistant manager, Stephen Kearney, came in. They relied quite heavily on their youngsters to perform this season. I didn't think they had a recognised goal scorer. They brought in some experience in the summer window, Anthony Pilkington and Joe Garner. And as I say, the younger lads, you know, Paddy Lane, Gerard Garner, Shaden Morris, James Hill, up until he went to Bournemouth in January. It was a very young, inexperienced squad, and I just felt that it would just be too much for them. And it was bloody close, but on the final day of the season, Fleetwood managed to survive on goal difference alone. They stayed up in 20th place. Paddy Lane, as I just mentioned, had a really good season in the middle of the park. 5 goals, 8 assists. Danny Andrew was probably their key senior player this season. 6 goals and 7 assists. The amount of free kicks the guy scored this season was absolutely ridiculous. They have just appointed former Celtic man Scott Brown as their manager, which certainly is a risky appointment, but then again, Fleetwood in the past have done really well with inexperienced managers. So Fleetwood are definitely going to be one of the more exciting teams to look out for next season. Moving on to the rest of the bottom half of the table. In 20th place, just surviving this season, I predicted the defending League Two champions, Cheltenham Town. And yeah, again, very similar to Cambridge, did prove me wrong quite a lot. They finished 15th. They finished in mid-table, 5 off of that one. But they did have some key performers, you know, up the other end of the pitch, scoring goals. Alfie May, of course, being the main one, 26 goals and 7 assists, the exact same record as Cole Stockton in all competitions. Callum Wright impressed as well with 9 goals, 7 assists. Liam Sercombe got 8 assists from midfield, a bit of experience in the middle of the pitch. While they had that going forward, their defence really let them down. They conceded 80 goals this season, among one of the worst in the division. Another young and up-and-coming manager in Michael Duff, done really well this season. And yeah, fair play to Cheltenham, proved me wrong again. In 19th place, I predicted Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank's Burton Albion. Now, this certainly was one of the more bolder shouts of my prediction video at the start of the season. The way I saw it for Burton this season, I either thought Hasselbank was either going to carry on that momentum and they were going to start progressing up the table, which, to be fair, they nearly did. You know, come November, December, I think that they were like 8th or 9th. But I felt they were just going to die off a little bit, steady out in mid-table again. And they have finished in the exact same position that they finished last season, 16th, which, yeah, I think we can't really argue with, to be honest with you. Just a very standard mid-table season for them. I mean, their top goal scorer was Daniel Jebison, and he left the club in January. He was obviously on loan from Sheffield United. He bagged 8 goals until he was recalled. Burton, I just felt, didn't really have a recognised goal scorer in that side. I mean, they signed Ghazan Ahadme and Omar Niassi, the former Everton player. There's a name for you. He bagged a couple of goals in his time. I think he's actually now left the club. I think they signed Guediora as well in midfield. I'm not too sure if he's still there, but they gave him a contract in the middle of the pitch, and he also done fairly well from what I can recall. Joe Powell as well, done well, 4 goals, 5 assists, probably one of their better players this season. But yeah, Burton just steadied that in mid-table in the end. I wasn't too far off of that one. But in 18th place, I predicted Gillingham, which obviously is quite the drop-off from the previous 2 seasons. They finished 10th in the last 2 seasons in a row. But going into this year, it seemed like the world was against them. You know, their ownership kind of took a turn for the worse. They were under a transfer embargo. They lost key personnel. Jack Bonham to Stoke, I do believe. Jordan Graham to Birmingham, by far their best player. Connor Ogilvie, of course, went to Portsmouth as well. Carl Dempsey left in January, signing for Bolton. I didn't expect them to struggle as much as they did. You know, in January, they really did not look good whatsoever. They were exactly like Burton last season. You know, they were absolutely slumped at the bottom of the table. Steve Evans got the sack. Neil Harris come in and replaced him, which I was very surprised. I was very surprised to see him get the Gillingham job, and obviously bringing in Ben Thompson with him, which again I thought was quite an impressive signing for Gillingham. But yeah, despite Harris slightly revolutionising that side a little bit, ultimately it wasn't enough, and the Gills are heading down to League Two. They finished in 21st, so again, not too far off with that prediction. I knew full well that they were going to struggle this season compared to the last, but yeah, I didn't expect them to struggle this badly. You know, they really put in some poor performances this season. Who was it they lost 7-2 to, wasn't it? Oxford, I think it was, at home. I mean, after all, they were the lowest scoring team in the division with 35 goals, which is, yeah, that is really, really poor. And not to mention, I think their leading top goal scorer, Vadaine Oliver, who bagged 11 goals, and he had a really good season last season. is leaving the club. He's available for a free, so whoever picks him up, I've no doubt a League One side are going to pick him up, but whoever does pick him up, I think we're going to get a pretty good bargain there. But yeah, a season to forget for Gillingham. In 17th place, sticking with my prediction from last year, is Plymouth Argyle, and yeah, this one, just an absolute rotter, an absolute howler, another one in this video, and you're going to see a couple more in this video, I must admit. They didn't finish 17th, they finished in 7th, and honestly, how the hell can you finish with 80 points and miss out on the top 6? It is absolutely ridiculous. Of course, they did bottle it on the final day in rather spectacular fashion, we have to say, losing 5-0 to MK Dons at home. I think they did go on quite a bad run heading into the final few days of the season. You know, they hit the bad form at the wrong time. And yeah, as I say, the fact that they managed to get 80 points and miss out on the top 6 just shows how competitive this league is. But yeah, Plymouth, like I said, I don't know how they've missed out on the top 6. I mean, under Ryan Lowe, they look like an absolute menace. They didn't lose a single game since the opening day of the season until, of course, they played us, Charlton at the Valley, beat them 2-0. Went on a massive dip. Lowe left in January, took the Preston job, of course. Stephen Schumacher took his place, and we have to say, while he is very inexperienced, he did very well, but unfortunately, they did just miss out. I mean, they had some pretty standout players this season. Ryan Hardy was exceptional, 19 goals in all competitions. Luke Jeffcott got 12, not as many as last season. I think a few Plymouth fans were a little bit frustrated with him, but yeah, he managed to get into double figures. Jordan Garrick impressed on loan from Swansea. They obviously had one of the worst defensive records in the league last season, and they managed to tighten that defence up a little bit. But Panuche Kamara, with 5 goals and 8 assists, he obviously is set to leave the club this summer after contract talks with him broke down fairly recently. So I think whoever gets him, I suspect a championship club, they're going to get a pretty good bargain out of it. So that is already for next season going to be a massive hole to fill for Plymouth, I think. But Kamara has been such an influence, you know, in the past couple of years. He's been there in the middle of that park. Losing him, he's going to be tough to replace. But yeah, Plymouth, very good season this year, way off with my prediction. In 16th place, I predicted then David Artell's Crewe Alexandra. Now, of course, at the time of me making that prediction, Crewe did still have 4 of their key players: Charlie Kirk, Owen Dale, Tom Lowry and Mikael Mandrin. Obviously, they did lose a few more players before then. Obviously, Perry and G and Harry Pickering had left the club by that point. Ryan Wintle in the middle of the park, that was a big loss for them. He, of course, went to Cardiff. And then after the prediction video, it sort of just fell apart with those 4 players I just mentioned. Owen Dale went to Blackpool on loan initially, then made the permanent move. Charlie Kirk, of course, went to my club, Charlton. Did not work out in the slightest for him there, but still he ended up going to Blackpool on loan anyway and done fairly well from what I remember. Tom Lowry didn't play the first few games of the season due to a contract dispute, I do believe, and Mandrin, I think, was among one of their better players this season. They just did not strengthen enough in the transfer window, in my opinion. They did not replace the key players they had lost, and they have ended up going down in emphatic fashion. They finished bottom of the table. It is quite possibly one of the worst seasons of a League One club in a very long time. You know, like I said, they did have some key personnel. You know, Chris Longbag in 10 goals. He come in the summer. Mandrin, as I mentioned, got 7 goals. Lowry got 4 in each, goals and assists. But yeah, a season to forget for Crewe, and obviously David Artell is no longer Crewe manager. He was sacked, I think, the next day after their relegation was confirmed. But yeah, deservedly so, we have to say. Crewe have gone back down, a case of second season syndrome for them. You know, they've done really well last season to finish 12th. Losing those players and not being able to replace them adequately was their biggest downfall. And then in 15th place, I predicted Accrington Stanley, the side that in previous years, I have just never backed to survive. You know, I think we all do it, to be honest with you. A lot of people do predict Accrington to go down. And this season, I wasn't falling for it. I was not falling for it in the slightest. I felt that they were going to survive. They were going to be comfortably in mid-table. And they were, but they went a lot better than what I predicted. They weren't 15th, they were 12th. I have no idea how John Coleman does it, seriously. The fact that he's able to consistently get that side to finishing in mid-table is absolutely ridiculous. Again, some standout performers this season. Colby Bishop, once again, 13 goals for him this season. Sean McConville topped the assist chart this year with 17. He was absolutely flawless for them. Harry Pell was also impressive, 6 goals, 5 assists. Dion Charles, of course, their leading man up front, did leave the club midway through. He went to Bolton after refusing to play due to a contract dispute, so I felt that that was going to be a killer blow for them. I felt that they were going to struggle, but it didn't really faze them, to be honest with you. I did not faze them in the slightest. The fact that they were still able to finish mid-table is absolutely full credit to Accrington, and like I'd say, you know, every single season they just defy the odds and they manage to consistently survive next season. And who knows what next season has in store. Definitely do need to sort out that defensive record though. 80 goals conceded, which is way too much. In 14th place, I predicted the fourth and final newly promoted side, that of course being Bolton Wanderers. I did see at the start of the season a lot of people had Bolton to be challenging for the top 6. Personally, I didn't see it. I felt that they were going to need to get accustomed to League One again. You know, they kept the main core of their team from last season while also adding to it, you know, the likes of Josh Sheehan, George Johnston coming in, Amadou Bakayoko, Elias Kachunga. My God, did they have a good season. They ended up finishing in 9th. They are going to have a good season next year. They are going to be well and truly up there fighting for the top 6 this season. Couple players I've just mentioned already. Dapuafa Lion, 12 goals, their top goal scorer in all competitions. Bakayoko, didn't have much confidence in him going into the season. He bagged double figures as well, 11 goals for him. Dion Charles was superb when he came to the club, as was John Daddy Bodvarsson. Their 2 fullbacks, Declan John and Marlon Fossey, did make an impact, and the abundance of midfielders they have, you know, Kieran Lee, Kieran Sadlier, Carl Dempsey, Josh Sheehan recently returning from injury. Ian Evatt is seriously building a good squad there, and like I said, they are well and truly going to be up there next season, so fair play to Bolton for proving me wrong, man. And then closing off the bottom half of the table was definitely a bold shout going into the season. In 13th place, I went with Shrewsbury. I really did think that they recruited really well in the summer window. You know, they signed some really decent players. You know, they brought in some experience in Elliot Bennett and Marco Morosi as well in goal. Obviously, he's been there and done it, won the league with Colchester. Luke Leahy, arguably one of the best goal-scoring fullbacks in the entire league. Brian Bowman had an impressive 2 years at Exeter, scoring 29 goals combined across the 2 seasons. And I really did think they were on for a course for a good season, but yeah, in the end, they kind of just faded away and they finished in 18th, you know, on the cusp of a relegation battle, as they usually are, to be honest with you. You know, we've seen it since they failed to get promoted. Dominic Ordo done really well this season, 16 goals in all competitions. Bowman, as I just mentioned, he bagged 13 in all competitions. Quite disappointed with Shrewsbury with the way they finished, but I think if they can have a very similar recruitment to what they did in the summer, then I do think that they will be progressing further up the table. And now we get on to the top half of the table, and there sure are a lot of stinkers here, so we'll just get straight into it, shall we? Coming in 12th place, I predicted Doncaster Rovers, and yeah, another prediction where I am absolutely miles off. They went down. They finished in 22nd, which I must admit I really did not see coming, because I did genuinely think that they recruited really well in the summer window. I thought they had signed some decent players. You know, Ben Close from Portsmouth, Matt Smith coming in from Arsenal, of course, didn't do great from Charlton last season, although he didn't play. Done really well at Swindon, though, we have to say, at the first half of the season. They signed some exciting young players, we have to say. Rodrigo Vilca from Newcastle, Pontus Dahlberg and Thiago Chuka for Watford, and yeah, I think all 3 of those did not work out in the slightest, particularly Churka. He was absolutely shocking for them. Dahlberg really disappointed, I think, for both Doncaster and Gillingham. A couple of people did predict it. Obviously, the way they finished last season was absolutely terrible. You know, Dan Butler coming in, replacing Darren Moore after he jumped ship, going to Sheffield Wednesday. They looked like a side that were going to be competing for top 2 at the very least, and they ended up finishing, what was it, like 14th in the end. They had a massive capitulation. Dan Butler got the sack, which I think was, yeah, probably for the best. I didn't rate him as a manager whatsoever. I don't know whether he was sacked actually, whether he left, I'm not entirely sure. Richie Wellings came in, wasn't inspired by the appointment, to be honest with you, and rightly so, because they really did put in some shocking performances this season. I'd probably go as far as saying they were the worst side we played this season. I mean, Charlton absolutely smashed the shit out of them, winning 4-0 at the Valley. But yeah, Doncaster, a season to forget. They were really poor this season, 10 wins all season. Did have a couple decent personnel on their books this year, you know, the likes of Tommy Rowe, he bagged 9 goals, Josh Martin impressed. It doesn't feel right, really, to say Doncaster are playing League 2 football. You know, it wasn't so long ago where Charlton were playing them in the playoff semi-finals. This one was just plain stupid, because I literally said it in the video. I'm fully expecting to get this one wrong. So I have no idea why I didn't predict them higher. In 11th place, I predicted newly relegated Wycombe Wanderers. Of course, coming down from the Championship, a very proud end to last season. You know, the fact that they were absolutely written off as like, oh, they're the worst side in the Championship. The fact that they were able to, you know, put up that much of a fight and only just go down is full credit to them. This season going into it, you know, they brought in some players that I felt were a bit... I wasn't too keen on him. I think Sam Boakes being the big one, I felt he didn't think he had it, to be honest with you, anymore. And yeah, he proved me wrong by being their top goal scorer with 17 goals. And yeah, fair play to Wycombe, because they have mounted not just a playoff push, but they are in the playoff final. They did, of course, finish in 6th place, so I was 5 off with this one. And as I just said, they are in the playoff final. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they face off against their opponents, who we will get onto later. But yeah, Wycombe, it's been a pretty good season for them. 9 defeats all season. Sam Vokes, as I say, standout player. Gareth McCleary was exceptional for them this season. Definitely a standout player. 12 goals and 7 assists. It actually looked like they were going to fall out of the top 6 at one point. They went on quite a bad run of form at the wrong time, but they did sort of pick it up again towards the last few games of the season, and yeah, made it into the top 6. The team that, of course, they beat in the playoff semi-finals, it was the team that I predicted to finish in 10th, and that was Milton Keynes Dons. Of course, that prediction was spurred on quite massively by the departure of Russell Martin. A new manager coming in that quickly when they were slowly starting to put the pieces together for the team. It was going to be interesting to see what they were going to do. But yeah, what a season for MK Dons. What a bloody season. But it honestly astounds me how they have not gone up this season. They, of course, ended up finishing in 3rd place with an 89.7 off with that one. And like I said, I have absolutely no idea how they have not gone up. The fact that they had 89 points in the season and they didn't get promoted is absolutely ridiculous. And I think next season is going to be really interesting for them, because they seriously have got to keep hold of their key assets. Liam Manning already is being subject to a move to QPR. QPR are sniffing around him due to the recent departure of Mark Warburton. Scott Twine honestly had an absolutely ridiculous season. 33 goal contributions, 20 goals and 13 assists is absolutely unheard of. I fully suspect there to be some big interest in him going into the season. I think there's actually been some Premier League interest, which I find hardly surprising. A 22-year-old racking up that amount of goal contributions is absolutely ridiculous. And I think if MK Dons lose him, then yeah, that is going to be a big hole to fill. Some other standout performers: Mo Aissa, Harry Darling was superb in the defensive line. Matt O'Reilly was doing really well until, of course, he made his move to Celtic in January. Troy Parrott, I guess you could say, had a breakthrough season. Definitely his best loan spell so far. But I think the fact that they missed out on the top 2, they got to be bitterly disappointed with that. And the fact they're not even going up, I think, is absolutely ridiculous. In 9th place, I predicted Carl Robinson's Oxford United. Of course, the job that Robinson has done at Oxford over the past couple of years has been fantastic. He's consistently got them in the playoffs the past 2 seasons. But I just felt that this season, I just felt they were going to miss out. While they did keep hold of some key players, Matty Taylor, Cameron Brannigan, Mark Sykes, James Henry, they did lose, obviously, Rob Atkinson in the summer window. He went to Bristol City. He was in the PFA Team of the Year last year. That was definitely going to be a hole to fill. And yeah, for whatever reason, I just felt that Oxford were going to miss out. And I ended up being right. They did just miss out on the top 6. They ended up finishing in 8th, so only one better than what I predicted. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that one. They were the joint top scorers in the league with 82 goals. Matty Taylor scoring 22 of them, so another good season for him. Brannigan also impressed massively, 14 goals. He's obviously been subject to a lot of championship interest. Blackpool was sniffing about him quite a lot in January, and ultimately it just wasn't enough for Oxford, and they have missed out on the top 6. They obviously will be looking to fight their way back into the top 6 places and in contention for the playoffs. We're coming towards the business end of the video now. In 8th place, missing out on the top 6, I predicted Portsmouth. Yeah, I just felt they didn't have enough. I just felt they did not have enough going into the season. I felt that they were going to miss out on the top 6. Of course, the Cowley brothers coming in, the first proper summer window under their management, and they did bring in some decent players in the window. Clark Robertson, Joe Morrell coming in, Connor Ogilvie, obviously from Gillingham. I thought was a great little signing. It's been a very inconsistent season for Portsmouth. We do have to say, a very inconsistent season. And they actually ended up finishing in 10th. A very disappointing season for Portsmouth, it is pretty safe to say. Some key players, George Hurst done well, 13 goals. Nathan Arnis got 12. Ronan Curtis, 8 goals, 9 assists. So another decent season for him. But yeah, just another inconsistent season for Portsmouth, really. Drew too many games and, yeah, just fell apart most of the time. They put in some pretty poor performances this season. Another season that Portsmouth miss out on the top 6, and obviously they're going to need to do a lot better next season. They're going to need to strengthen in that side a lot more. And then just missing out on the top 6, coming in 7th place. Once again, not changing my prediction from last season. I did predict Sunderland, and it was at the time fully down to their lack of transfer activity and I did strongly believe that their team was weaker than what it was last season. Of course, they did sign Alex Pritchard from Huddersfield, who had a pretty torrid time there, we do have to say, and I felt that while stepping down to League One may be good for him, I just felt that it wasn't exactly an inspiring signing. And obviously Charlie Wyke left. While Charlie Wyke is by no means a great player, I don't think he was, that great. I just felt he just got in the right place at the right time last season, was able to rack up the goals that he did. I felt that Ross Stewart wasn't able to do that, and he was the top goal scorer in League One this season. So a lot of my predictions are certainly backfiring this year. But yeah, Sunderland, they did prove me wrong once again. They did make their way into the top 6, finishing in 5th place. And of course, they are in the playoff final, taking on Wycombe Wanderers. And to be honest with you, I think their time at League One should really be coming to an end. It has to come to an end. And to be honest with you, I think it will, and the only reason I think it will is because Charlton are not there to play them. So yeah, I think they will obviously have that bit of reassurance, the fact that we're not anywhere near them, so they can go into the game against Wycombe, and hopefully for their sake anyway, they can go up, because I think they cannot spend a 5th straight season in League One. Their stay in League One has to come to an end, and they did have some very good players this season. Ross Stewart, as I said, he was the top goal scorer in League One. I do believe, though, correct me if I'm wrong, he got 25 goals this season. Nathan Broadhead, massively impressed. Elliot Embleton done well, 8 goals, 7 assists. I was quite surprised that they were able to keep him after how well he done at Blackpool. I felt Blackpool would at least have signed him to head up to the Championship, but no, they kept hold of him and he had a really good season. Dan Neil, again, had a breakthrough year for him. He's obviously been subject to a lot of Premier League and Championship interest at the moment, so if Sunderland don't go up, I think they're going to find it very difficult to keep hold of him. Alex Pritchard, as I mentioned earlier, he got 4 goals and 10 assists. He done really well, and yeah, well done to Sunderland, man. The fact that they were again able to prove me wrong, managed to finish inside the playoffs, and they are in the playoff final, so I wish them all the best in the playoff final. Now we get on to the top 6. Who did I predict to finish in the playoffs, and who did I predict to finish in the automatic promotion spots and win the league? And we do begin with 2 absolute stinkers. So let's begin with the worst prediction in this video. In 6th place, I predicted last year's playoff finalists, Lincoln City. Obviously, in the summer, they did lose that magical front three of Brennan Johnson, Morgan Rogers and George Grant. They, of course, all left the club in that summer window. Johnson and Rogers returning to their respective parent clubs. They were on loan, obviously. And George Grant made the move to Peterborough. Their replacements, they signed Hakiba Delican, they brought in Teddy Bishop from Ipswich, Lewis Fiorini from Man City. That's obviously where Morgan Rogers came from, so replaced them quite well. But yeah, it just didn't work out for them in the slightest. And as I said, this is my worst prediction in the video by a country mile. They finished 17th, a really disappointing season for Lincoln this year. It just did not work out in the slightest. Their key personnel, like I said, the 3 players in the midfield, they just didn't replace them adequately in the end. Lewis Monsma, their star centre-half, got injured midway through the season. They did lack a goal scorer this year. Obviously, John Marquis came in and done fairly well. Obviously, he was at Portsmouth at the start of the season. He bagged a couple of goals, got 5 goals. Morgan Whittaker, of course, came in January as well. He also scored 5 goals. Chris Maguire was another player I forgot. Actually, he came in the middle of that park to... as a replacement for that front 3 that they had. He got 4 goals, 5 assists, which is okay. Anthony Scully was probably their best player this season, 11 goals, 7 assists. I fully expect there to be interest in him going into the season. Fiorini got 6 goals and 4 assists. And of course, Michael Appleton is no longer there. Their manager has, of course, left the club. I do feel sorry for Appleton, I felt he done really well last season, especially. The fact that he was able to get them into the playoff final was a miracle in itself. And yeah, this season, it just didn't work out for him. And unfortunately, he has left the club. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do in terms of their managerial situation. I think they have actually appointed a new manager, Mark Kennedy, I think his name is, the assistant to Lee Bowyer at Birmingham. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fares next season. But yeah, a very disappointing season for Lincoln. Let's just get this out of the way as quick as physically possible. In 5th place, we come to my club, Charlton Athletic. And of course, let's just get straight down to the nitty-gritty. A season to forget for the Addicts. We ended up finishing in 13th, 8 positions off where I predicted us to finish. And yeah, there is no sugarcoating it. An absolutely dreadful season for us. I must have said it so many times in the previous couple videos. Nigel Adkins at the time, we thought that we was going to do really well. We felt at the time we'd done well in the summer, when ultimately we just waited way too long to sign players. The recruitment was a shambles. Adkins, how dreadful was he? 2 wins in the first 14 games, rightly so. He got the sack. I thought he should have gone absolutely ages ago. Johnny Jackson came in. We do have to give him full credit, to be honest with you, for the honeymoon period that he did have. And we have to say, if Jackson hadn't got the job and Adkins would have stayed put, we'd have been in a lot worse of a position. So the fact that Jackson was able to get this team, this uninspiring shambles of a team, to finish in 14th, to finish in 13th, in fact, after the football that they played this season. That just shows how low I think of them. Is a miracle in itself. I do think it was the right decision to pull the plug on Jackson. I just felt he was an inexperienced manager that had his flaws and, you know, was quite stubborn with his tactics, wouldn't change formation, didn't look like he can motivate a side. That's not to say that it's entirely his fault. You know, the team was an absolute shambles, and hopefully a lot more players will be exiting in the summer window, and obviously the recruitment was a shambles. A lot of that has got to be blamed on Thomas Sandgaard, to be honest with you. He really has to get this season right. You know, the managerial appointment, the recruitment, the players that come in, you know, we have to get this right next season, because we cannot afford to have another season like this one, because this one was just an absolute shambles, and we're just going to put this firmly in the past now. But yeah, I am not inspired about this club whatsoever. It's just been a season to forget. Finally, it has taken us absolutely ages, but we do have a correct prediction in this video, and that is, of course, 4th placed Sheffield Wednesday. Yes, they did end up finishing in 4th place. Coming down from the Championship, I felt that they were going to have a pretty decent season. You know, the players that they still had at the time, you know, your Lee Gregory's, who I think they signed him in the summer, actually. And then you got, obviously, Callum Patterson, Massimo Luongo, Saido Berahino, who they signed later on, Che Dunkley, centre-half, Bailey Peacock-Farrell in goal. You know, they did, in my opinion, they still had Championship players in that team. And yeah, rightly so, they were amongst it in the playoffs. But unfortunately, Darren Moore's side did miss out on the playoff final, losing to Sunderland in the final moments of the game. Patrick Roberts' Sunderland goal, of course, in the final moments, sending them to Wembley. But yeah, Sheffield Wednesday, I felt over the course of the season, they were fairly inconsistent at times, and they did draw a fair amount of games. But I think overall, they did have a very good season. Barry Bannon, while Charlton fans will like to laugh at him for his previous agenda against us, we do have to say he was absolutely fantastic this season. You know, 9 goals, 12 assists. He's just not a League One player. He's an absolute cheat code at this level. Berahino done really well, 8 goals for them. Marvin Johnson was the provider for them at wing-back. He got a fair few assists this season, a fair few decent goal contributions for him, and a few other players that I've just mentioned, you know, Luongo. George Byers impressed from January onwards after joining from Swansea. So yeah, disappointing for Sheffield Wednesday, the fact that they did miss out on the playoff final, but yeah, they certainly will be up there going into next season. And then closing off the playoffs in 3rd place, I predicted Wigan Athletic, and honestly, Wigan's story over the past couple of years is absolutely fantastic. You know, obviously last season, surviving by the skin of their teeth. You know, they were in the thick of administration, you know, actually just come out of administration. Phoenix 2021, I think that's what they're called. They came in. Wigan Athletic have gone up as champions. They have won the league, and honestly, as I say, it is full credit to them. You know, the story that they've been on, you know, the fact that they, you know, they would have finished 11th or 12th for their whereabouts last in the Championship if it wasn't for the 12-point deduction, and then obviously surviving by the skin of their teeth last season. The job that Liam Richardson has done is absolutely fantastic. You know, it's absolutely brilliant. And the owner as well, you know, the fact that he's put his hand in his wallet and he's backed the club, is as simple as that. And they've put together a seriously good side this season. You know, they really, really did. They were the joint top goal scorers with Oxford with 82 goals. Will Keane, 26 goals. Sorry, he was the top goal scorer, not Ross Stewart, so I do apologise for that. Callum Lang, superb season for him this year, 18 goals, 7 assists, and obviously the other players they've had this year, James McLean, Max Power, Jack Watmell, what a signing he was from Portsmouth. They've had some really, really good players this season, and they've built a very, very solid team heading into the Championship, and I think with a couple more additions, they could be looking very good next season. So congratulations to Wigan, from one club who's had ownership problems to another. Congratulations. And now we get on to the automatic promotion spots, the top 2. Who did I predict to finish in 2nd place, and who did I predict to win the league? Starting off with 2nd place, I predicted the 3rd and final newly relegated side, that of course being Rotherham United. And there is my 2nd correct prediction of the video, level with my predictions from last season. I think we all knew full well that Rotherham were going to be in the promotion fight. You know, it's Rotherham, at the end of the day, they're like the biggest yo-yo club in the country. But yeah, we know that they are too good for this division, and I knew full well that under Paul Warne, they were going to seriously impress this season, and that's exactly what they did. They had the least amount of draws in the division with 9 draws. Michael Smith was fantastic, 20 goals for them. Freddie Ladapo, obviously, with the controversies that surrounded him, he entered double figures. I felt would have got a lot more had that not got in the way. Dan Barlaser and Ben Wiles in the middle of the pitch was superb. Romani Edmonds-Green in the defence was fantastic, and yeah, again, a very good League One season for Rotherham, which is pretty standard, let's be honest. But yeah, they're going to want to, you know, improve upon that, and they're going to want to try and survive in the Championship next season. But knowing their luck, they're probably going to go down again. But they've got to try and break away from that curse, man. They've got to try and break away from it. They've got to try and stay in the Championship next season. And then to wrap up this video, in first place, I predicted the Tractor Boys, Ipswich Town. I predicted them to run away with the division purely based off the summer transfer window they had. They signed 19 players. Burson Salino, Connor Chaplin, you know, Sam Morsey, more, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Macaulay Bonne on loan, Raheem Harper. You know, they signed some seriously good players on paper. There are more that I can't really think of right now. Wes Burns, that's another one. He was superb for them this season. But yeah, I guess you could say when a new team comes in and when you sign that many players and a new manager coming in with Paul Cook, it takes time to adjust. And rather surprisingly, to be honest with you, I don't know how this has happened, but Ipswich have ended up with the amount of money that they've spent and the amount of players they've signed and the amount of good, decent on-paper players they've signed. They ended up finishing worse than what they were last season. They finished in 11th, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I guess, like I said, when you sign that amount of players and that good calibre of players, it's going to take time for them to gel. But I think Paul Cook just didn't work out in the slightest. He did not work out. He obviously got sacked. Stephen McKenna came in. I think that's his name. Is his first name Stephen? I don't know. I know his name is McKenna. Did turn it around slightly, but it wasn't enough for them to mount any sort of promotion challenge. A disappointing season for sure for Ipswich, for what was expected of them at the start of the season. You know, they were hotly tipped to be champions. I think they were the favourites, in fact, with the sheer amount of players that they signed. But yeah, Paul Cook just didn't work out. The players that they signed this season, they have massively underachieved, much like my club, Charlton. And there you have it, guys. That is it for this video. There was my reaction to my predictions I made at the start of the 2021-22 League One season. Overall, there are some absolute rotters in there, but overall, I did get the joint most amount of predictions correct in this video. Sheffield Wednesday and Rotherham being bang on. So yeah, I'm fairly happy with some of them, but as I say, there are some absolute stinkers. So what do you guys think of my predictions this season? Did I do well? Did I do shocking? Let me know in the comments below. How did you get on? Thank you very much for watching this video, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did, can you possibly leave a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and turn on those post notifications so you are notified of every time I upload a new video. This has been Tyler Rowlinson. Have a nice day, and I will see you all in the next video. Take it easy, stay safe, and I'll see you all then.